Morning. After the school drop-off, Rosie and I decided to climb a mountain. Here we are. So pretty. But anyway, I haven't wanted to get on camera pretty much ever, and it's hard. It's hard to video record. Hi, Rosie. I just gave her a drink from my pack. And I always have been afraid to speak out and say something. Well, I mean, to ever speak up, to say anything. I don't mean like against anybody. I've just had a hard time getting on camera or saying anything about my life and about the people I love and stuff. It seems like it's kind of dangerous to do that too. Your privacy is important. Good girl. Oh, she's sitting right next to me. That's a good girl. You're so cute. She can't even sit down. She's so excited. But I've been thinking for a while that I actually do, after almost 40 years, I'm 37, have some things to say. And oh, Rosie, big yawns. This is Rosie. And I think I want to just say some things, and maybe it'll help people, maybe it won't, I don't know. People have helped me with offering their perspective, so I want to help if I can. That's not the reason I'm doing it, but it would be cool if it happened. And I didn't know where to start, so I went on this trail this morning just to try and figure out like what I wanted to even say. And I didn't have a plan. And so just know that I didn't wear this t-shirt because I knew what I was going to say today. But a lot of people have asked me after I wrote my book and on the Soft White Underbelly interview I did about a month ago, which I wasn't sure I was ever gonna share, but they asked me if I talk to my meth addict mom anymore now that I'm an adult. And in case you don't want to like listen to a big long thing, no, I don't talk to her anymore. Not since 2016, Christmas of 2016. So there's your short answer if you want. I have my reasons for doing it, and I wanted to talk about that because I think a lot of people have a hard time either with like parents, and they want to know kind of the pros and cons of making a choice like that, cutting any person out of your life that matters to you a lot and has been a part of your life for so long. And then also like the nature of addiction and like mental illness and stuff, because not everyone is like this, but my mom definitely struggled quite a bit with those things, which would explain why, and this is all part of my book that I wrote a long time ago. It's part of the reason why she ended up having quite a few addictions, but mostly methamphetamine, and why she ended up, abusing and neglecting her family. So I'm just gonna be really brief. So my mother, I don't know how to do this. I don't really record myself, so this is fun. Woo! and I'm trying to hike too. But my mother, I won't mention her name because it's not really important to target anyone. I just want this to be a general story. My mother was a young teen mother, and she didn't graduate high school, and she was born into poverty without a father, born of a mother who was raped and molested as a child and grew up in the Great Depression. I'm just going to turn my hearing aids down really quick. And so she grew up with like a pretty adverse childhood, I would say, which is not uncommon for a lot of people who deal with addiction. But she dropped out of high school, ran away when her oldest brother, who was way older than her, kind of like the only father figure she probably ever knew, because he was probably like 11 years older than her, or 12, died by suicide. And she dropped out. She ran away from home. Her mom really checked out on her. Come here, Rosie. Come on, baby girl. And she got pregnant as a teenager with me. And the father, my father, didn't want me. He was in the military, and I think, didn't really want to be with a teenage girl. Come on, Rosie. Who was kind of a immature party animal. And I don't think she was doing meth then. She was only like 17, And he just this is a story I was told. I don't know because I wasn't born yet, but he sent her money to have an abortion, and she bought baby clothes instead. And I don't know why she did that. I've asked her before, and she said that everything happens for a reason. And that was kind of a blind faith kind of thing. So then she wound up pregnant. It ended up being a really happy situation for my granny, her mother, because she had lost her son, and it probably was like and also like her 2 grandchildren, because her son's spouse moved somewhere else, I think Florida, and got remarried and took them away, and she was pretty sad. And so she ended up really loving that my mom was pregnant, and she said that she knew it was going to be a girl, which is kind of weird, She didn't know that. What are you doing, Rosie? Really handsome dog. Smelling a really good thing. And so my mom had her, and she struggled, to put food on the table. I definitely am a welfare child, so yeah. I don't do welfare now, but I did until I was 17, have welfare to help me. My mom obviously had a lot of things happen even past that. Rosie, come on. She had many divorces. She got pregnant with sorry, I should back up. She got married to a man who was not my dad while she was still pregnant with me, because my sperm donor father, not the one that's on my birth certificate, he said, good luck finding anyone to raise someone else's baby. And she took that as a challenge because she was 17. And so she found someone to marry, and he gave her a black eye by the time I was 3 months old, and so they got divorced. And then she met a married man at a bar and had an affair, and she had another kid, which she gave up for adoption, and I'm sure that was traumatic. But she couldn't afford to take care of so many babies on her own. And then her mom had a stroke because her mom smoked a lot and had a hard life, and she was kind of taking care of her disabled mom with me. Then she got married to a new dude who was awful, and that's just my opinion, and moved to Colorado and then to Illinois, and they ended up having 2 sets of twins. Like, people in my family are way too fertile, and they got divorced multiple times, and she wound up like having to sleep on my grandpa's floor with all of her kids, and we lived on government subsidies to be able to afford life, and it was hard, and it was a struggle, and she probably had some metabolic disorders, which is true of a lot of people in my family. My granny had hardening of the arteries and cholesterol problems, and she had diabetes, and yeah, like just a lot of unhealthy things, you know. I swear my mom was more addicted to Pepsi than she was like meth, so you can understand that she probably had some untreated diabetes. All right, we gotta go down this way, honey. Come on, baby. And sorry, I say a lot. This is why I don't like being on camera and stuff. I'm not that type, and I'm probably looking in the wrong area. I am definitely a product of my generation, and I was super poor, so I didn't grow up with any technology. I don't know anything. Anything I post will be very ignorant, but so my mother eventually, after all the kids were born, and like maybe the youngest ones were like 2 or so, I remember her studying and getting her GED because it was really hard for her to get a job. But we wound up in Utah, and she just kind of, with multiple like breakups, divorces, constant battles, she didn't get along with neighbors, like a lot of hard things, somewhat caused by her. I'm not saying they weren't, but being judged by community and neighbors and stuff like that, like it was just a lot, and she was gaining a lot of weight, and she met somebody who got into meth or was selling it. The family was selling it, and they're really famous around these parts for their meth dealings and like how often they've been arrested and stuff like that. But meth took over the West in the early 2000s. A lot of women wanted to just lose weight and have energy to get the laundry done, and when you have 2 sets of twins 2 years apart, I can only imagine like how your body feels, especially when you're doing it alone. Like the diapers, I don't even know how you could afford even the diapers. I literally don't know how my family survived, but of course it's always harder to survive when someone has a habit that only drains money and gives you no food or shelter or anything, like drugs. So my mom was really mean when she drank, but she didn't like drink too much because that's a downer, and she preferred uppers. She preferred to have energy for all the kids. So that's just kind of the backstory. She probably had some mental illness. I'm not a licensed therapist, so I'm not going to say what or anything. And plus, that's medical history, and I don't want to hurt anybody. But it was probably made worse by diet and lifestyle and poverty, and probably a lot of things I don't even know about, like traumas that I don't even know about. So with all that in mind, I loved my mom. I had a lot of love for her when I was young. She had a beautiful voice, like she was a really good singer, and it reminded me of The Little Mermaid. And she had red hair, which also reminded me of The Little Mermaid and like Molly Ringwald, and it was really curly, like just so voluminous, which was really big in the 80s. And so she was really beautiful, really charming, quick-witted. She was really good at speaking, and she she could charm the pants off of anybody. That's why she was able to get married like at least 7 times. And she could be really funny and kind when she wanted to be around children and stuff like that. So anyway, I started to fear her first, I think, and then I started to hate her as I got older. So she would do really crazy things that seemed really extreme, like cut my hair off at the kitchen table and hand it to me. She got angry for no reason. She blew up. She had a temper like her father, and she was just mean. But it got worse with meth use, for sure, obviously. Meth use like exacerbated any kind of anger or loops of highs and lows and stuff like that. And it was pretty severe, the abuse that she perpetrated. And I don't want to get too much into that. I can in another video, but the point is I started to hate her and fear her, and I didn't like her, and I didn't like what she was doing. I didn't like the men she brought into our lives, and they or their sons would sexually assault us little girls. Man, look at how pretty that is. But I'm not trying to record torture porn here. Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that on YouTube. Anyway, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but I'm just trying to generally talk about how severe it was for me and where it came from and everything. So because of how absolutely terrifying it was every minute that she raised her voice, or when I would accidentally wake her up, or when she had a mood, or especially when she did meth, she was an absolute monster. Like I've seen people get mad. I've seen people lose it. I've even seen people get drunk and lose it, but she was evil. And I've thought about that a lot, saying that kind of thing, because I don't say that word lightly. I'm not really a religious person, but I don't know how else to describe it. Straight up, it was terrorizing. It was a terrorizing time of my life. And my granny was my only hope, and I love her. And she wasn't perfect, but she tried, and she loved me, and she loved her grandchildren, and she was really careful with us. But anyway, my granny was my only hope, and she just kept telling me that someday I could get out of the house, I could get away from her, and that was the only hope that I had. Okay, Rose? So by the time I was probably 12, I started to realize something was truly wrong with her. By the time I was 14, I hated her, I was angry, and I wanted to get away from her. So, and I did. I started running away. Now, as an adult, I was told by people I loved. I went into foster care, and I was told by all those people that I met and loved, and they were religious, that I needed to forgive my mom, and I was ordered to go back to my mom before I just moved out for good when I was 17. But they told me, you have to forgive your mom, and your mom has been through hard stuff and everything, and I could recognize that. Not everybody has the trash heap of a life that we had, and I can respect that, and my granny too. But it smells almost kind of water and dirt together with these scrub oak leaves. I love them. I love scrub oak. They used to be all around the house I used to live in. But what was I gonna say? But at some point, I really hated her. I didn't want to be around her, and I tried to get out as fast as I could away from her. Now, I loved my granny, and I didn't want to stay in this state, but my granny was here, and she was disabled, and she'd found a place to live and live out her life comfortably and everything, even though she was not from here. She was born in Tennessee, and then she was raised in Kentucky, and then my mom was born in Kansas. And so, you know, it wasn't ideal. I don't think my granny like really wanted to live here, but she made it work, and I didn't want to like have to move her or do something. My brothers and sisters ended up being taken away when my mom went to jail and then later prison. She's a felon, and they went with their fathers, but I have a different father that isn't on my birth certificate or anything. And I was 18 by then, just barely graduated high school when that happened. She went to jail, and she went in and out of jail for 10 years and ended up in prison and stuff. So with just like paraphernalia charges and driving without insurance and stuff like that, you know, just getting caught without a license, without insurance, under the influence with paraphernalia, all this stuff. And it just kept going and going and going until she finally like got locked up for a while, I guess. I don't know. I would write to her, and I would have my son send, because I had one son at the time, send like pictures, and we would visit her and call her, and my granny and I would like buy little things for her in jail to make it more comfortable, like vitamins and soap and stuff like that. But because Jesus told us to, you know, visit the incarcerated, and so I was trying to do my duty, but I lived in a total panic attack all the time around her and with her. I hated her. I could not stop. Like, I hated everything. When I heard anything about her, because she was like homeless. After she lost the kids, she just went homeless and went full drug addict and just lived on the streets and lived out of like motels. And I was terrified of her, and I hated the choices she was making, and I just hated her. I hated everything about her because she was so immature. But I was under the impression that this was because of meth. So what was interesting is my mom tried to get sober a couple of times, and one of the longest times she was sober, which I think was like 90 days, I realized that I just didn't like her, and that like meth made things worse, sure, but meth, you'll hear this from a lot of, I don't know from my own experience, but you'll hear this from a lot of addicts and a lot of alcoholics. They say that a lot of people will blame the substance, but actually it brings out something about you. So if you are an angry drunk, it's because you're angry, because other people get drunk and they're not angry, so it's you. And my dad, I don't know a lot about him, but he's kind of like a silly drunk, you know. And then I had this stepdad who was an alcoholic, but alcohol always made him like lazy and relaxed and laid back and stuff. It was only my mom and my grandpa that alcohol made really, what do you see, Rosie? Made really angry, you know. They had a lot of anger in them. And so like at some point I realized, like, even if somebody gets sober, they can still not be a very good person and not a very safe person, which is a weird thought. And it makes me want to cry so bad, because I wanted to believe that my mom was a good person who just got mixed in with a bad thing. But a lot of her behavior, whether she was on meth or not, was extremely selfish and self-interested. She withheld food from her kids. She used food stamp money to buy drugs or Pepsi or whatever she wanted, not what was best for the children. So like, there are people who are poor, and there are people who are even traumatized and poor, and they would do anything for their kids, and they love them and they would protect them. And even if they were on meth, they would never allow someone to get raped as an 8-year-old or whatever. Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube either. I don't know anything. But anyway, and then there are people who do. There are people who do. I would look up the newest person she was dating to see if they were a sex offender or if they had like a criminal record, while my siblings, who are 4 and 6 years younger than me, and I'm being a mom to them from the time I was like 9. Full-time mom by the time I was 11 for sure. But to see if they were going to be protected and okay. And when I would bring up like, hey, this dude is a sex offender. He literally like did something to his stepdaughter like less than a year ago. Why is he in our house? And she wouldn't take care of it. And then later, a couple months later, she might dump him and then be like, oh, well, I got rid of him because he was a sex offender. It's like, you heard that from us. What are you talking about? So she had really poor judgment. She did what she wanted to do and not what was best for kids. And I know this now because I have kids. Instead of looking good to other people, you can actually be good to your children. You can ruin your reputation. You can destroy your own mental health trying to make sure that they live in a Garden of Eden. And I have not been a perfect mom. I'm not saying that. But I now know, I hear of stories where people have mothers who would stay up, would work 2 jobs, stay up all night sewing buttons, do whatever they could to get their kid in the best school, or even when their kid was acting out, crying and saying, I know that you're better than this. Stop acting out. My mom wouldn't get out of bed to take us to school. Like, I had to figure it out. I could walk 2 miles, I could find a friend, I could try and break the rules with the bus and get on a bus stop that I'm not allowed to be at, walk to the nearest bus stop and get there. I don't know, make it work, because my mom did not give, well, probably can't say that. I don't want this to be too terribly inappropriate, especially since I'm hoping maybe my children would watch it. I don't know if they would. So I don't talk to my mom. I stayed in contact with my mom mostly because my granny was alive, and I love my granny. I would do anything for her, and I was there until the day she died. I'm really, I was really tired and I was really stressed out when I was taking care of her, but I don't regret it now, and she's been gone 9 years last month. And I don't regret staying in this state. I don't regret taking care of her in her last years. And it was really stressful. I was pregnant with my second baby, and I was lifting her wheelchair into the back of my car, and I was so stressed because I had nobody, and it's weird to be like 18 years old and be your granny's emergency contact, But I don't regret being there for literally the very last day she lived. The very last day. And brushing her hair when she was dead. And I didn't get her ashes or really anything of hers because my mom took it all. She was really destitute at the time, and so I think she wanted to sell all my granny's stuff for money. I have a butterfly from her that she used to hang on her wall. Butterflies were our thing. She was the only good thing in my whole life. 18 years of terror, and she was the only good thing. And I have some of her tin cans she used to store things in. I have her dresser. I don't think I have anything else of hers. No, I do have a letter that her son wrote to her before he died. The only letter he ever wrote her. And I have a notebook that she wrote in, so I have her handwriting. But anyway, I just miss her a lot. She was the only thing that got me through it. I'm gonna sit down for a second. I'm just afraid somebody's gonna see me on the trail like this. Hey, Rosie. I think Rosie is my granny coming back to me. She just reminds me of her a lot. I love her. I love this dog. She was such a pain in the butt when she was a puppy. But I love her. Anyway, when my granny died, the way my mom acted, which is probably how someone with mental illness who did meth for like 15 years would act. I was so disgusted by how she just like came in and, is someone coming, baby? She came in and took everything and sold everything and acted like, and this is very typical of somebody like her, just running away from the problem, you know. Sold everything and used the money to party. I'm not kidding, like buy Slurpees for everybody and just took all the money. There wasn't even that much money, by the way. She literally had like a rent payment's worth like $600, but my mom acted like it was winning the lottery. She had nothing. My granny had some nice toilet paper, but she was disabled for the entire time I ever knew her. So she had nothing. But my mom took all that. And I realized that I had like a lot of stress every time I thought about her, a lot of panic, a lot of whatever. And I have always been too poor to afford therapy. I've been through a lot, and I never could really have that except for in foster care. I was mandated. But I was just stressed out. And even though my mom was like sober during that time, I don't know, but you know, I think she was sober. She would get in screaming matches with her 7th or 8th husband, whatever that one was. He like slit his neck open when he thought he lost her. They got into a fight and she walked off, and he was so upset or high or drunk or something and slit his neck. And then he came to Christmas dinner with her with his neck still like wrapped up in bandages from the hospital and stuff. It was crazy. And I had 2 young children, and then I got pregnant with my 3rd, and the pregnancies, all of them were really, really difficult. I probably shouldn't have had kids. They were so difficult. Every part of it was difficult. Like, I almost died giving birth all the time. So, oops, I dropped it. I'm just trying to straighten it out. But I was getting such anxiety that it was making me throw up with the baby. And so even though I was like told by people to be forgiving and let her in my life and all that stuff, Jesus and all that, I told myself I was just going to take a little break, and I did. I just because the baby didn't deserve, my children didn't deserve to have Christmas dinner with people who like slit their necks open. That was pretty terrifying and gross, and I didn't know that it had happened. And she would tell me, like, straight up, probably because she's not very mentally well, she would tell me like, oh, I didn't tell you about it because I knew you wouldn't let me see the kids, or like you wouldn't let me come down to visit you if you knew about this. And I was like, yeah, because you know it's wrong. Children shouldn't be around people with slits in their neck and addicts and drunkards and like people who scream and fight with each other. Like, no. My childhood was completely filled with it. I don't want that for my kids. And so because I was so ill with my last pregnancy and in so much pain, and this stuff was going on, and she knowingly violated so much and said that she knowingly violated it, I just told her to never come back, and if she was ever found on my property that I would call the police. And I almost had to file a protective order because of digital harassment. She was calling me and leaving me voicemails and texting me and getting on Facebook. At the time, I'm not on it anymore, but sending me messages. And I don't mean like calling me, I mean calling me every 3 minutes from about 3 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock the next day. Every 3 minutes, leaving me 3-minute voicemails until I changed my phone number and got that number blocked with the carrier. So she's just a very violating person. So it has nothing to do with meth. I wouldn't let my kids be around anyone who was, you know, no, at least if I knew, was doing drugs or drinking or anything like that. Just like I would expect that at school, you know, like all the people who work at the schools right now, at least in our state, have to take a drug test and have to pass a background check and all that stuff. So I feel like it was pretty forgiving to let somebody who was a felon into my home to see my kids supervised for an hour or two. But after Granny died, and after seeing that it didn't matter if there were drugs in her system or not, she was just an unhealthy person, I decided, no, I don't want her in my life anymore. And I have heard things from other people over the years, like every once in a while, but I have not talked to her since then. And oops, sorry, Rosie. And so I know that people are gonna say whatever they say, and they do say it to me, but I feel really good about my decision. I haven't regretted it. I haven't gone back on it. It helps me be a more present and mentally healthy mother, because that was a really difficult time in my life, and she was almost entirely the reason for it. There are still things that I think are positive about my mom. I've said them. You know, she had a few good things, and I tried to remember good things when I wrote my book.